Good morning, my darlings. It is very, very late and very, very late for Jules and exceptionally early for Megan. What is it, 5 a.m. where you are, Megan?
Yeah.
The dedication of the star team knows no bounds. Welcome to Astrology 2.0. It's been a while since we've had a show, and 2024, I think, is going to be a year of complete and utter insanity, given the way it started. We're still in January, day 472 of January, but we are supposed to go into February soon. I wanted to get the ladies together to talk about this year because my gut and the guts of a lot of people have been like, oh, well, what's this year going to bring? Because holy shit, I don't think it's going to be a good year. But I wanted to get in with you guys. And of course, Amina on our epic Unfuckers Christmas and New Year's chats that went on for days. Amina popped in and started dropping all these bombshells with a few people who were awake at her time in the morning. And now we're all like, well, now we really want to hear more. Like, we really, really want to hear more of what we see coming in. So, my darlings, hmm, is this year
First
going to be the
thoughts?
year of extreme fuckery?
No, I don't reckon. I don't think it's going to be the big show, but it's going to go really quick, I think. And it's going to be, there's a lot of shit happening. I put in the chat, I had a couple of visuals that came to mind. It's like everyone's rushing into the theatre to get their seats for the big show, but there's a punch up in aisles 3, 4, and 5, but it's not quite the riot because everyone's distracted by the flying car that comes in as people are
Okay,
trying to get their seats. So
I've got a question for you on that. What do you regard as the big show?
I think I've been having a look at the next few years. Um, there's quite a few cycles ending at the moment and a few cycles which are about to start. So I think 2025, 2026, and into 27 and 28 are much bigger.
See, I see this year as quite a big year for a big show.
I still think it's a big year because we've still got a lot of changes, but I don't think it's the big one, if you know what I
Do you
mean.
know, do you know what I'm looking at this year as? You know, when you're watching a series and you're nearing the like season finale, so you have several story arcs wrapping up, but you have some new ones, just the glimmers of them starting to be introduced,
Yep.
but
The
you don't
big
really
plot twist
see the full.
cliffhangers.
Yeah, that's how I'm kind of viewing 2024 is we have some wrap ups of these long transits, but we also have the glimmers of like the new shit show.
The new shit
Not the
show.
full picture of where it's
Absolutely.
going
It's
because
the
those
new
seasons
shit
aren't open
show.
yet. Yeah,
It's
the new
the
shit
old shit
show.
show is closing out and the new
Yeah,
shit show is
Neptune and
starting.
Aries shit show.
The Aries shit show.
Yeah.
Well, I'd mentioned to Nick about like charts and look at like Klaus Schwab, and maybe we should look at Trudeau again because things aren't going very well for him in his little make believe world. Um, and Nick was like, I think that we should get some invitations made up for like Schwab and Trudeau and Soros and Biden and offer them a free trip on a submarine down to the Marianas Trench.
Well, you know,
Perfect.
anything really on the water is kind of going to be touch and go with Saturn there. So, and
I'm good with
with
that.
the
Yeah.
what would they call it? Ocean Gate last year, like that was a very literal manifestation of Saturn stationing in
In
Pisces. So,
Pisces.
I think a lot of Saturn in Pisces has to do with learning boundaries. Like we as public on the whole don't know our boundaries. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like we
Uh-huh.
don't know where to say no and I don't consent to this. We just all we know is that if something is mentioned on the news, I mean, not all we know, but all most people would know is if something's on the news, then they'll protest it if they don't like it, like form a protest. But what most people don't realize is that while that is going on, that is literally a distraction to the real thing that's happening that we usually should say no to. And it's almost like we don't know our boundaries. We don't know, like, if nothing is propelled by the news, by the media, we don't make a big effort against it.
Yeah.
Totally. I think
Saturn in Pisces is like, where are our boundaries? So if it starts with what are our rights as people, or as humans, or as living soul,
Breathing,
or whatever, breathing, arms and
consciousness.
legs, people with arms and legs, what are our boundaries? And when we've got Saturn in Pisces blurring more boundaries as well, we can feel this the energy is like a little confusing about what do we do when like something that gets hyped up is not necessarily the thing not always that we should be protesting against, and protesting is not always the thing we should be doing.
There's a continuous shift of narratives and distractions, and it's when something starts bubbling up that they don't want, it's like, oh, look over here. And the problem is even within the truther, freedom fighters type movements, they're getting distracted by the big things that are being leaked. And I literally multiple times we've had stuff come up in the news, especially in the last 6 months, and I've been like, now you just watch, all the truthers are going to go, oh, and they'll all be focused over here. And yet we know it's a distraction. It is the lesser of the stories. This is something that they've deliberately
like Miami
breadcrumbs to, just to keep everyone offside, not really looking and trying to find what the real thing is.
I feel like a lot of that is Neptune. And I think that now that Saturn has moved into Pisces with Neptune, Saturn is kind of grappling with trying to resurrect some boundaries and structures against some of these distractions, while at the same time Saturn itself is dissolving in the Pisces Sea. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's
I think a lot of it is to do with mass media, because Neptune rules movies and the gaming world, and Saturn is very much about the politics. And so when the politics becomes a movie, and it's scripted and there's people on board acting out the script, then I feel like then it's like a controlled version of the illusion. And that when Saturn's there, it's dominating. But when I don't feel like Saturn actually breaks the boundaries so much, but it sort of gets to the point where everybody goes, hang on a minute, this is a bit much.
Yeah, well,
is this real?
but this is the thing, like the script they're acting out is a B-grade movie script.
Exactly.
Like it's
with bad actors. It's
with really bad actors, and really storylines are so terrible, and the character
it's organized chaos, but it's just it's like a really junior scriptwriter has just shoved out the script without proofreading it. You know what I mean? Like,
and they've hired a couple of extras to actually play the lead roles.
Exactly. and the main actors who are supposed to know their parts don't know their parts.
No.
And so they're reading from the script, literally, the teleprompter. This is what I'm supposed to do.
It's definitely
is this right?
Yeah, pushing people's narratives in all sorts of directions with,
and I think it just gets to the
disinformation.
I think it gets to the point when, by the time Saturn gets halfway, it really reaches the point where people will be asking that question: Is this just some script that we've been shoved? What's really going on? What is really going on? What's really happening? And I think like the process over time, the time it takes is kind of like that. You know, we start to question things like that when we get, like, maybe when there's a moon transit in that part, or when there's something trining, like let's say Jupiter comes to trine Saturn in Saturn's in Pisces and Jupiter's in Cancer, and at that point we're like, oh, this is too much. Come on.
Well, but that's kind of like, okay, we're talking politics right now, which is just a circus, like a ridiculous, like cheap ass, pay your nickel at the door circus, right? But the way you're describing it is also kind of like how we're seeing reality in general right now. Like a lot of people are literally going, is this real?
Right.
Is this
right.
is this real? Because
is this a simulation?
Is it?
I don't. It's definitely going to increase.
I think
this
so.
is just the start. This is just the start. So with Saturn's co-presence with Neptune in Pisces, they're getting closer and closer together. So Saturn's probably a third of the way through at the moment, and Neptune's kind of in that last decan. And they're not going to actually come together in their conjunction until next year in February when it's in Aries. So we're going to have an increase of this. Is this fantasy, or is this, is this illusion, or is this real? And I think that's exacerbated by AI, like the AI videos and things coming out as well, and fake.
Yeah.
Again, going, is it live or is it Memorex?
That's exactly. It's just going to increase. So be prepared for more bullshit. Just a teaser. We've only got a little while to go.
Because when Saturn gets back to its sign, it sort of brings a bit of the sign with it. And then it comes through Aquarius, which is also its sign, and brings a bit of that with it. And the dregs of these two signs, sort of the politics, the AI, the science and or the illusion of science, or the science that we don't know about, and the kind of corporate world or the political world coming together with it. And it's almost like, if we're supposed to agree by some consensus, then we're being manipulated into what we agree to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what we've got to learn. That's the lesson.
So there's some major shifts this year. Like, so one of the big ones you guys were talking was Saturn, and was it Pluto that got brought up?
Pluto.
Okay,
yes.
So first of all, like
Uranus.
So what?
Everything's changing.
If we talk about these shifts, could you give us like a brief outline of, like, for the year, what's happening and when? Just to give us an idea of like what the ebb and flow might be looking like. And for people who don't comprehend the astrology, things like Pluto is got a very, very, very long cycle. So it's maybe just kind of touch on that too, like the kind of the length of these cycles. Because we've talked about the historical repeating nature of certain events that seem to happen and follow these longer and shorter cycles that we've quasi kind of tied to certain planetary movements. So that's what I wanted to hear about today.
How about we zip through Jules's the PowerPoint that she's got?
Slides. Yeah. Can you make me a host?
Give me
Danny,
just a second, my love.
So first round, we'll just zip through it and give you some dates. And maybe those people who want to write those dates down, just write them down, take a note. And then maybe we'll go back to the beginning again and then sort of stop at certain points. Because if we do stop at certain points at the beginning, I think
we'll never get through we'll never get through it all. We know how you guys go. We've been through this rodeo.
Yeah,
so let's
definitely.
just zip through first without comment and just give you the overview of what we're going to look at.
Oh, Amina, you're so funny without comment, because that'll happen with this crew.
Yeah, well, But you know what I mean, right? I mean,
Yes,
you
I
know,
got what
yeah,
you're saying. I shall endeavor to
yeah, I mean,
hold my questions to the end.
Okay, I'm trying to share stuff. Hang on a minute.
Can you share the screen?
I'm trying to just find it. It's changed. What's
It's
going
okay.
on?
Should we? Oh, are you on a Mac
Okay.
or a PC?
PC.
Okay, it should be on the very bottom. If you don't
Yep,
see it
I've
in the
got the
center,
button.
then you see the triple dots at the very far right, and you click that, and you'll
Yep.
get another whole drop-down menu. But share screen should be the green square right in the middle.
Oh yeah, I've got it. I've got the green square. It's just coming up with applications rather than screen.
And you just pick, there is a button down at the bottom of that screen that will allow you to, there you go, you've got it.
Can you see?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And I just put it on, can you see that?
Yep.
full screen. Yeah.
Perfect.
That made your
Awesome.
Perfect.
Awesome. So, Pluto's got a really long, well, it's the longest orbit. It's about 248 years. It's been in Capricorn since 2008, and it'll dip back into Capricorn in September this year, briefly, and then it'll go back into Aquarius. It'll start in Aquarius officially from November this year. So Pluto is really interesting because the Pluto in Scorpio generation, it spends about 12 years in Scorpio, which is the shortest amount of time in its entire orbit. So it's really interesting because people, the Pluto and Leo generation, so I know we've got a few of those here. Maury, looking at you, will experience a Pluto opposition, which is really doesn't happen with other generations at all, being in Aquarius. So Pluto in Aquarius, it will spend 21 years in Aquarius, starting now, re-entered in January, just last week. So there's been quite a bit of news about Pluto in Aquarius, but we're not there for the long haul. It's going to be there for about 40 weeks of the year. Oh, hang on a minute.
And what
And
is like crucial about this point is that whenever it goes into Aquarius, there's something new about it. But whenever it goes back into Capricorn, it goes back to the anaretic degree of 29 degrees, which is the wrapping up degree, because there's no degree number 30. It's like 29 goes to 0. So we see this, like whatever has not been fully accomplished by Pluto decimate all the things that it was touching from 2008 until 2024.
i.e. finance?
It goes back, yeah, it goes back to the 29th degree and decimates huge. It's like a grenade going off, or worse, you know.
so you could really say Pluto is a planet of transformation. That's like a motherhood statement of what Pluto does, but it also takes the form of the destroyer. It comes in and it brings up all the rot of that particular area of life, and it'll dismantle it and it'll rebirth it, or it'll transport it from one state to another. So you hear of the story of the billionaire that becomes a pauper overnight, or the other way around. It kind of transmutes and transports that energy in really quite drastic and atomic ways. So
Well,
you can
know
see
how,
with
like,
Pluto
when
and
it began,
Capricorn, it kind of it dropped a seed of destruction into that corporate realm in Capricorn. And we could see that with, what happened in 2020. We could see that in 2008 with the financial crisis. It was slowly kind of building up, and building up and building up and tearing down those structures.
Okay, so like when it first
Capricornian kind of
when it first went
structures.
into Capricorn, after a few months, it blew up the stock market, didn't it? And we had a financial crash, but we didn't have a complete decimation of the financial world. But it went back and forth so that this bubble was patched up like a bad bicycle tire with rubber patches all over it, and the glue kept coming unstuck and it would patch it back, but there would be times when somebody would get fired, or some company would crumble, or some stock would just go to zero. And so it just goes on like that. But in my understanding of it is the 29th degree, it's whatever's left is gone. It's like the rest of the bicycle tire just goes kaput. It just falls apart. And it could
It's unpatchable.
blow. It's unpatchable, and you have to replace it. So it's I say that's the wrong metaphor, really, because bicycle tire is nothing compared to what we got.
Yeah.
I mean, with all due respect, right? We should have had a complete collapse of the housing market, but it.
I've been talking about this I've been talking about this for 10 years. Everything they're doing right now is mirrors and sleight of hand, and they've been bankrupt since 2009 everywhere. Yeah. And they just they shuffle and they make new rules so that they can, and they make new equations so they can rebalance books to make it look good. But it's all patchwork, like you said, patchwork on the tires, and they get to a point where sooner or later it all implodes. You can no longer patch it. It is going to just blow up.
You can't patch it forever. You can't.
Yeah, and when one patch goes off, it's all going to go. It's not like so as it goes little bit by little bit, 1 degree forward, 1 degree back, 2 degrees forward, 1 degree back. It does that for so many years, and it touches on so many things. All those CEOs that resigned, all those companies that went bust, all those people that left, with their organization, people who got killed, people who got murdered, all that stuff. And then people were even jailed. But when it gets to that 29th degree, that is the degree where we expect, okay, it just has to.
And when is that?
It can't stand.
When does it hit?
Well,
this whole of the
now.
2024.
It's 2024. So Pluto's only moved, as Amina said, it's only moved a couple of degrees between 27 and 29, dipped into Aquarius briefly for about 6 weeks last year between March and June. And really, again, this year, it's really only 1 to 2 degrees because of all the retrogrades. It spends most of its time in retrograde. So it really just inches forward very slowly.
Unless you're a very sincere person with a very high level of integrity, if you're at the top, you can't stay there.
Yeah. Good. We like to hear that.
I think if you've got integrity, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're probably taken down anyway.
No, I think it leaves you alone. You just sit there going, where is everybody? I thought we had a board meeting. Oh.
Well, because going back to what Jules was saying about how Pluto moves so slowly, most planets move in a clear motion. Pluto is moving, but it doesn't appear to be moving. It appears to be sitting and pulsing in a spot, which really speaks to the intensity that this planet holds. And what's coming to mind right now for me is the story of the telltale heart. So if something is underneath the floorboards and it's just beating and it's beating and it's ticking away at all your guilt and everything that you've been sitting on and hiding, that's going to make you paranoid because the fall is about to come. But if you've got nothing to hide and you've hidden nothing between the floorboards, then the pulsing isn't going to affect you. Going into what Amina said, and with just the cycle of Pluto and how it's gone back and forth over this 29th degree, so many times as it's come in and out of Aquarius, we haven't seen that final show because it's not done with 29. It's not done with 29 until this year. And as Jules said, like 29 is the anaretic degree. It comes from the Greek word that literally means destroyer. That's what's going to happen this year. Just the now, it's happening.
That's why I kind of say this year's the big show, because to me, the big show is not what's coming, but what's ending. That's to me the big show. That's my thank God
In that
for
case,
that.
yeah.
All my life,
there's a lot of stuff
this
ending.
shit has been going on, and I've been watching it, waiting
yeah,
for it
I mean,
to fall apart.
For the last 10 years, we have sat, those who have been aware, watching and observing this and watching the buildup, and then the sleight of hand, and then watching the buildup and the sleight. In 2020 was the biggest round of sleight of hand mirror magic they could pull to distract, to make excuses for, etc. We have been waiting and feeling it. Like, you can feel the fall is coming, and you're waiting and you're waiting and on the edge of your seat. And that's, to me, that financial
It's so
piece,
dire.
it is dire, but it's
The
an
waiting is so
indicator to
dire.
humans, right? Like, there's a lot of other stuff that plays out in realms that people can't fathom and really aren't interested in politics and all the rest of it, and even in science, etc. But finance, economic, that affects every single person on the planet, and everyone is feeling it right now. You can feel, it's like you're waiting to hear the pin drop. And that is where we sit. And that's why I find what you're saying really, really interesting, because, you know, since 2019, I've been like, it has to go. It has to go right now. Like there's nothing else they can do. And then 2020 happened. I was like, oh, that's what they could do to cover it all up. Interesting. So yeah, pull the Band-Aid off. Let's get it. Let's just pull the Band-Aid off.
Sure, it's going to be painful, but we can't carry on.
Oh yeah.
I was just going to say, it's not sustainable. What's happening? You ever get to that point where you're just living recklessly, paycheck to paycheck, or you know what I mean? Like you're binging on drugs or something, and you know
get to that point. It's always been at that point.
Keep doing this, I'm gonna be done. Like, it's just not sustainable to carry on. That's what the state of everything is right now. It's no longer sustainable. And once upon a time, we were, as the audience, in this space where it was very easy to get caught up in the sleight of hand and swept away and like the magic of the illusion. And now it's like we're all sitting here and they're not even doing sleight of hand anymore. No. They're being so fucking blatant, and they're like,
completely transparent.
Sleight of hand. And it's like, no, it wasn't. Like, we see it.
We saw you. Like, literally, you didn't.
Like, do with the cups, but they're transparent cups.
It's like, trust us. Yeah, and we're like, what?
We can see the hole in the table that the coin drops through. I mean, literally, like, we can see it, guy. Yeah.
But nobody's standing up and being like, hey.
And that's my point, Megan. Like, that.
Yeah. We're still at the point where instead of putting it outward to, you know, the stage, we're looking at the fellow audience members like, what?
Did you see that?
Yeah. And we're watching the stage hands. They're not even, you know, dressed
in
in
the
black.
Wire? I saw the Wire.
Okay, so we weren't going to discuss these slides. Remember this? Yeah, shall I remind you all that we weren't going to discuss them? Okay, go ahead, Jules, with Neptune. We'll rally back, no doubt.
Well, just what you said about the sleight of hand with Neptune, it's all about illusion. It's the media, as Amina said, and we're starting to get into a stage where, okay, let's just say the AI piece is part of this Pluto and Aquarius story, and also possibly Uranus in Gemini, which is coming up. But for now, we do have a lack of boundaries. And in Pisces, I mean, you think of the compassion of Pisces and, you know, the martyrdom of Pisces, and no one's really speaking up. And I think we've seen that in sort of social media a little bit, people are a little bit more leftist or PC, and they don't want to upset anybody. You know, that we've seen that as a theme with Neptune in Pisces, and that is coming to an end. So with Neptune, I think it's about 184, 148. Bit dyslexic there. Again, it's an outer planet. It stays in a sign for about 14 years. So it's been in Pisces since 2011. That one is also coming to the end of its cycle in 2026. And we'll get the first taste of Aries next year at the end of March. So this idea of, you know, sitting back and you're looking at each other in the crowd, that's not going to happen when Neptune gets to Aries. I think that's going to change. What are your thoughts, Megan?
I feel like
and Amina,
I feel
when
like
that changes.
Yeah. So like to what you were saying, this whole like everybody just kind of not wanting to ruffle feathers, and you don't want to be viewed as non-compassionate or non-empathetic in the world. This, like, you know what I mean? Like if you speak out against any narrative or you point to reality, you're unkind, you're an asshole, you're not being compassionate. And I feel like when Neptune leaves
just
Pisces,
being called, you know, when you call a spade, but no one likes.
yeah, once upon a time it was just being direct, and now it's being an asshole. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
like literally say
That's
like, well,
right.
actually, like this is reality, and it's like next to me. Like I have a vagina, therefore I'm a woman. Like once upon a time that was a controversial statement. Now it is. And I think that when Neptune moves into Aries, you're going to see a shift from pandering to the collective to more focus to the individual, especially with Saturn there with it. I don't know.
Yeah, at zero
Yeah,
Aries.
definitely. At zero
That's a world
Aries,
point.
right on the world point. Yeah.
That's a world point. That is like that is the time where it affects the world. Like some of this leftist politically correct stuff is affecting people who are in the news, but where I live, it doesn't affect us here. All those policies and you know, those are what we consider over here, like the Western politics.
Mm-hmm.
It's not here. It's not, like, no way.
But it's trying to infiltrate worldwide, and I think
it's almost like unless you have these policies, you don't get money from these organizations. But
and I think when the shifts into Aries come, it's going to pull back, and it's going to be the non-Western countries. I almost said companies, but yeah, really, like no.
Freudian
and then
slip.
and then I think tide's going to start rolling the other way once we hit those Aries points.
Do you think?
Definitely.
Well, it's going to, I mean,
maybe I'm too much of an optimist, but I think that will all be over. That whole idealism, the whole narration.
I hope so. That's kind of what I
think
mean.
it would just stop. I think it would just be right. Enough of that. We've got different things that we want to focus on. There's no more money in that.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. In Pisces, it's the ocean, right? So you have that ebb and the flow, and we're seeing that now. It goes one way and then it rolls back a little bit, and it goes one way and it rolls back a bit. But Aries is a very different creature. It's very like it's ruled by Mars. Mars likes to sever. It's
like to cut, sever. It's that
it likes to be
of
direct.
Energy.
Yeah,
it's very direct.
It likes to be really direct.
The hot-headedness of Mars. Yes.
It's Danny.
Right, Danny.
It's Danny. Miss Aries herself.
I think. I think it's interesting too. Like I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but with the nodes running contrary to the rest of the planets, we're getting tastes of that Aries energy now. When things start to shift into Aries, the nodes or the North Node is going to shift into Pisces, and the North Node.
That's kind of like when
it likes to devour
go viral.
Things.
Yeah, that's when like videos go viral that are counter to the narrative.
Yes, and what I'm picturing is like the head of the dragon devouring all the bullshit. Like it's just going to start swallowing it in gulps and gulps and gulps as we're in these final degrees of Pisces when things are starting to overlap. And then we're going to just get that, that hard cut with Aries.
Well, where's the line, right? Like, this is what we've been talking about for ages on the show. Like, where is the line where the public has had enough? Where it becomes so transparent, so in your face that even the most sleepy-headed muggles have to all of a sudden go, "Oh, what did he just say? What just happened? Wait,
I don't know about you, but I'm seeing that already.
well, we
I'm
are, and we are, but,
seeing that in
kind of like what Megan's saying is
Yeah.
like this, like it's like there's like you see something come in, and people start their heads come up, and they go, "What? Well, what?" And then all of a sudden, something else comes in, and they go, "Oh, okay, let's look over here now for a little while." And then it comes in, and they start to build, but we haven't had the tidal wave yet. We haven't had the moment where people literally can no longer be distracted by all
Okay,
these
to
little
me, that's
things.
November this year, but it may be that's just my interpretation.
I think it's going to be different for different countries and different parts of the world. So where Amina is, I think you're seeing it now. I'm seeing pockets of it in Australia, not a lot. Definitely not in the mainstream media because we're, a Western Commonwealth country.
Yep.
I'm not saying that at all. It's really an uprising and an undercurrent, and that's another part of the story with Uranus moving into Gemini, because and that's happening next year as well in 2025. So again, we've got Uranus coming to the end of its cycle in Taurus. And do you know what we had when Uranus was in Gemini?
What?
We had the French Revolution and we had the American Revolution.
Ah, that's right.
Both
We talked about this
revolutions.
on the last show. Yes, we did.
And Uranus is going to trine Pluto. So those forces are going to be working together.
They're going to open up the gate, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a positive working together. It's things are going to flow really strongly. And it's going to be fast because it's so much air. Yeah, Aquarius is fixed, but it's still air. And Gemini is air. And the information, I think it's going to start really picking up, especially after all this slow Capricorn that we've been mired in for years.
It's almost
picking
like
up now.
those people
It's
who-
already picking up now. In the last 6 months,
Absolutely.
some of the things that are, well, you mentioned it, Megan, because of course you're in Canada right now. Trudeau has just had the federal government say, you can't do that. No, you can't. You did, but you're not allowed to. And he's
That
going to
came
ignore
with the
it.
ingress of Pluto into Aquarius. It was the same day or the day after. I can't
Oh,
remember.
really?
Yeah. And I was talking a little bit about it in the chat earlier. There's a timing technique in astrology called profections, and it has to do with different time lords and areas for each year. And Canada is in a first house year, and that's a very active year. So you're going to see a lot of changes in this country. We're an Aries rising country. I think the Neptune, Saturn swinging over that Pisces, Aries point is going to be really strongly felt up here just because we are an Aries rising nation. Wouldn't surprise me if we have an election this year.
Yeah, well, you can.
Anybody that's been watching Canadian politics has absolutely been seeing the opposition, specifically the leader, slaughtering Trudeau in the polls. Well, he's in a 10th house here. And he's a Gemini. So, I mean, his words are really just, each word is a nail in the coffin.
Yeah. And that's why I suggested pulling up Trudeau's chart if we have time, because he's so extreme. The things that he has done politically, and we talk about, again, transparency, right? That during the convoys, etc., during 2021, 22, and all this, where he was calling anyone who said anything against the narrative was called a Nazi.
He's such a drama queen.
And yet, who brings the Nazi into Parliament and then tries to celebrate him? So
literally Trudeau.
He's-
Literally, it was Trudeau.
it
that
was
did
Trudeau.
that.
So we've got this, like the entire narrative of him and his party, but him
It's
is
him.
literally shattering. Like even people I know who 4 years ago were like, yeah, Trudeau's the best, is now like, oh, we need to get this fucker out.
The
Seriously.
only demographic that is still supporting Trudeau is older women. That's it.
Why?
Just because they like the look of his
maybe
ass
they
and
think
yoga
he's fucking
pants.
charming still or something, or they just don't care about politics. You're like, oh yeah, that guy, he's nice. I don't know. But let's go back to 2015 and Mr. Sunny Ways. And I'm gonna be the most transparent leader of government you ever had. So we can't even share news links in Canada.
Yep.
We're not allowed to do that. How's
Yep.
that for transparency?
Yep.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
transparency is he talking about? Maybe he had his fingers crossed behind his back when he said that.
The
Maybe
emperor
he
has
had
no
like
clothes.
another.
That's the thing, because he
The emperor has no clothes. That's the kind of transparency he's talking about.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's the thing. Like, he is a petulant child. I was listening to his address to his caucus just the other day, and he was referencing Polyev, and he was talking about the transparency and the support of all these different demographics and people that aren't open to these conversations. They can't have, or they can't get, they don't get Canada. That's how he said. They don't get Canada. And most people took that as, well, they don't understand. Get as in they don't understand. I heard a petulant child saying, where, they don't get it. It's mine.
Yep.
Like, you can't have it.
Yep.
And that's what it boils down to.
Yep.
Moving along, ladies, because again
Mm.
we've stopped and chat. Okay. Well, we could do
Yeah.
this. We could stick to the points.
Yeah. But, well, kinda.
Not
It
really.
doesn't really matter. But also, you were saying, you can see that uprising kind of happening now, and I think it's to do with the nodes, as Megan said. They're kind of leading the charge, and we're going to have a lot of planets. Well, we're going to have Mars riding with the North Node in Aries later on in the year, and that's going to be pretty intense. But from July last year, that's like 6 months ago, right,
Yep.
Megan?
Yeah.
Where the North Node's in Aries, and it's kind of like this hungry beast where it just ingests. I mean, that's what the North Node does. It's the head of the dragon, and it doesn't really get quite satiated. So
Never.
moving along, it's never satiated. So the interesting thing about all these planets, they're pretty much all the outer planets. So all the transits that we're having are at or near the 29th degree. And as soon as they hit that 29th degree, and if it's in like a cardinal modality, so that's Aries, Libra, Cancer, or Capricorn, they're going to hit that 29th degree. And if they move into the fixed sign, they're going to get slammed by Pluto in Aquarius. So that we're getting this double whammy at the moment. So, okay, let's
I
just
feel like
go.
I've been living my whole life for this.
There's
You
a
know,
couple
it's
of
like
things
when
that
you're
are
Dorothy.
happening.
I hear you, Amina.
You know, you're Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz your whole entire life, and then you see this Emerald City and you see this curtain, and Toto's just run over to the curtain. And you're like, go on, do it. I know what
Go
happens.
ahead, do it. Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah.
come on.
I was talking to some friends of mine, and I went and had a look at the charts, and one thing I keep forgetting to have a look at is these out of bounds planets or declination. It's celestial latitude. So whether you believe the Earth's at 23.5 degrees tilt or not, it's agnostic to that. But these planets sort of like dip in and out of the ecliptic, so we can't really see them, and they act in unpredictable ways. So while we've got Mars, and I only just noticed this, but notice the numbers. The number of days that Mars is out of
33,
bounds.
11,
33,
96.
11, 96. And so have you noticed
Interesting numbers.
interesting numbers, right? So have you noticed, like, probably around Christmas up until like the last week, that people have been a little bit triggered? A little bit triggered?
Like losing their shit?
Just
Like
losing their
literally
shit,
losing their shit.
like coming across as calm on the surface with, Mars in Capricorn. Mars is exalted in Capricorn, so it kind of essentially cools the planet down a little bit. And so it acts, with a level head. But because it's out of bounds, there's something sort of shit going on under the surface,
You mean like
People are
there's a
walking
lot of
around.
tension and conflict?
There's a
that
lot of tension under the
is very
surface, and
subtext.
it is extremely subtext. And I think I've noticed that, and I went, oh,
Passive aggressive.
it could be.
Well,
It's a very aggressive, passive aggressive kind of Mars.
Yeah.
It's almost reminiscent of like Mars in Cancer. And Megan's going to jump in. She's like itching.
This Mars out of bounds is so interesting. And then you're going to layer in the fact that at the end of the year, Mars is going retrograde. It's going to be out of bounds for a big portion of this retrograde period.
Yes. Yes.
that does not sound exciting.
And it's going to oppose Pluto.
And yes, it will.
That's going to be dirty. But anyway.
That's why I keep saying this year it's kind of like the preamble, because even though there's a lot of things happening and a lot of endings happening, there's a lot of really intense stuff happening in the next year.
The episode before
well.
the finale episode.
That's why
Finale
The
episode.
build-up episode.
Yes.
Where
Wraps
all
everything
the
up.
storylines are hung, and they leave you waiting for the finale because all the characters are
It's
hanging
the
off the cliff.
cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've watched like 8 episodes, and throughout those episodes, each one of them has had like 20 little subplots going on, and none of them have been answered. And you know that they keep coming back. So there's something in them, but you just can't figure out what. And then at the second to last episode, they all come back to show you what we're going to conclude. And they're all like, there's like 276 little plots that you're going, oh my God.
And
Yes.
which ones are going to wrap up and which
Yeah.
ones are actually going to continue on in their new form? Because I feel like, if there's 20 story arcs, we've got 12 of them wrapping up, but there's like 8 of them that it's like, well, these are going into the next season, but they're not going to
which ones are going to stay on
this season.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got a few of the other ones just out of interest. With Mercury, I do find that there's an increase in disinformation, misinformation. We're going to have Jupiter and Gemini. I mean, it's going to be a bit crazy, I think, come mid-year to the end of the year. And with the elections, when's the US election? Is that
November 11th, 12th?
It's like
perfect?
it's just after
Timing.
Mars opposes Pluto.
Yep. So
Or
you're
maybe
going to have
even on the day.
Mercury out of bounds from the 7th to the 30th of November. So that information around that is just going to be insane.
Disinformation around that is going to be insane.
Disinformation, absolutely. Or just crazy stuff. It's just really unpredictable. Venus, I've got Venus in there out of interest as well. Everything's just going to move quite quickly at the start of the year because they've got nothing in retrograde for a little while. Now, I've put in a lot of the transits for January. So I don't know if you want to talk about what's happened in the last few weeks, or if you wanted to jump into other people's charts. I want to open it up. I want to see what people are thinking.
Since the 21st of December, because I always talk every year, I talk about the time outside of time, which is that 21st of December to anywhere between the 5th to the 10th of January, going by the old original Roman calendars.
The
And during that time, we
yeah.
always see all kinds of shifty stuff. That's when they do really like secretive things in Parliament, in Congress, because most of the people are on holiday. Most people are distracted, so they will drop news pieces out there, knowing that everyone's distracted. This year was, I knew, I had a gut feeling it was going to be crazy, and it was. Mandela effects off the charts, like crazy stuff, and almost weekly something new, crazy happening that is, and I may have just discovered the grandfather of all Mandela effects yesterday. I won't get into it now because maybe astrology plays into it, but we won't. No, I literally think I found yesterday the largest Mandela effect that affects in the world.
I went and looked at like all these major Mandela effects going back to 2015, 20 to 2017. And then I realized that, that you know how they come in waves?
Yep.
They're like at the solstice and equinox.
Yep.
They're always at the solstice and equinox, especially December and March. Those are the big ones.
Yep. It's crazy. So November 5th. Okay, so Leonida confirmed that the US election is November 5th. Why did I think it was the 12th?
Yeah, and Mars opposite Pluto.
Mars opposite Pluto.
I don't think you're going to get a result if you're going to have an election.
Yeah, that was the question I wanted to ask, but I'm a little afraid to ask. Is there actually going to be an election? Because it looks like they're padding up the table to be able to do the whole, oh no, there's martial law and a civil war, so no election. Do we see anything like that? Like, okay, so like America's chart, and I know one of you pulled up America's chart, didn't you?
Yeah, me.
I do have it, so I'll stop the share here.
Because I would like to, like, that is, I don't want to sound American centric, like, because you know what, there's a lot of other places in the world, but unfortunately right now with the power structure as it is built, what goes on in American politics affects everyone in the world.
Yeah.
And with the stuff that is building right now, so we have a Biden who is obviously senile, who's obviously incapable of changing his own diaper, let alone leading a country. They're not pushing him aside. There's been rumors and little bits and pieces. You've got Trump in the forerunning, and they're not going to let Trump take the Republicans. So what's going to happen there? But now we have this new thing with Texas. And I think it's now a 50-50 split, that 50% of the states are now sending aid to Texas to secure their southern border. And the federal government is trying to stop them.
On the side note of Texas, can I share something?
Yeah. You want to literally screen share something? Hold on, Amina. I'll make you co-host. That way you can. I'm
not ripping the co-host away from.
No. Oh, you should both.
No.
You're both co-hosts.
Should be able to do it.
Yeah.
All right, hang on. Let me open the document before I press share. That makes it easier. There's 3 pictures. Now, I showed them last year. I put them in our little discussions, and it didn't get much response.
It's just a white screen right now, Amina.
It's just a white screen.
All we're seeing is a white screen.
Okay, wait.
Make sure you choose the right screen. Like if you've already got the document open.
No, I'm going to open the document first.
Yep.
I've got 3.
And then choose whatever software that you're going to use to show them on.
Why do I have to choose the soft one?
You have to. It's just fucking stupid with Zoom, and you can't do the full-on screen thing. It makes me insane.
I can. I don't have to choose any software.
Okay. We'll see them.
Okay, so this one is the eclipse over Texas.
Right. Yes.
It was on the 8th of October.
I was there for that.
Okay, so you can see its direction, and it's like right over Texas, right?
Yep.
And so you take that date, 8th of October. Sorry, 14th of October.
Yep.
14th of October. Okay. Then I will share another one, which is 8th of April this year. Here's
Yep.
an eclipse of the 8th of April this year. And it is also
Crossing right over Texas.
crossing right over Texas. Okay. So you see those two, right? And they meet, I think it's there's a place where they meet, but it's regardless, it's so close to the border. Okay, so then you see both eclipses put together and they both cross over Texas. The only meeting point for the two eclipses is Texas. So now I mean, this is my experimental astrology, but this is what I noticed, okay? So if I take the two dates, October the 14th and April the 8th, and I find they're 177 days apart, and I half that, you get 88 to 89 days. And on that day, at that time, we get the 12th of January. So I looked at Texas news, and on the news in Texas, am I screen sharing?
Nope.
Okay,
No.
wait.
You have to exit out each time and then reopen it to the screen you want.
Okay, so that's both
No, we're
eclipses.
looking at your eclipses.
Okay, both eclipses. All right. And then the midpoint of the eclipse dates will be the news of Texas on the 12th of January. So you can see by this that the big story on the 12th of January was the Supreme Court blocking. That was exact on the date between the two eclipses.
Yep.
So now I've got a new theory about
Wow.
eclipses, which is you look at the eclipses that form a pattern, not every single eclipse, but eclipse that forms a pattern on a location, and you find the midpoint between those two eclipses by date. Not by degree
That's really
in
interesting.
astrology, but by date.
Interesting.
And you'll get the exact issue that will come about. So you can only do it in
And this is
hindsight.
the concern
Don't
right
know what
now.
that would be. So
Yep.
I thought last year when I noticed this was coming, I thought that Texas would be wanting to remove itself from the United States because of the financial system. But I didn't think about the border at that time, because at that time it wasn't like the big story. But as the time got closer and the border was open, I was like, oh yeah, they're grieved. They're getting aggrieved by this, and it's going to escalate until the 12th of January. And at that point, Texas is going to do something, and it's going to get pushed back because the story doesn't end for another 88 or 89 days. So this next section of Texas, I think, leads to Texas exiting the US or the Supreme Court overturning their ruling.
Amina,
That's not the first time
that
I've
is
heard that.
so interesting that you're saying it on like that timing for two reasons. Do you guys remember when we were doing our pre-2020 shows and our into 2020 shows, and we had a lot of talk about Saturn and Pluto conjuncting, potentially meaning changing of land borders in the long term as it
Yep.
like things ripple
Yeah.
out?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we did.
I am of the belief that when something important happens in the sky, that degree of the zodiac holds that, just the same
Yeah.
as we all hold the experiences of our lives. Well, what was January 12th? That was a Saturn Pluto conjunction.
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
happening conjunct that degree in the sky around 22
Yeah.
Capricorn.
So it's a ripple effect from that story.
Hmm.
And that story is now like, this is the next chapter. So yeah, I do believe that
Interesting.
when we look at eclipses over areas, you have to look at the midpoints, and then you have to see what the issues are on the midpoint date, because that is the center of the issue. And the center of the issue is the Supreme Court. Now, let's say that Texas decides to exit the US. There are other states that are in support of Texas.
50-50 split right now. 50-50
So,
split.
so when we had the Civil War in in the US, and it was an issue between the North and the South, and the states that the Confederation and all of that. I'm not great on American history. I just know that happened.
There are
right?
no Americans sitting here on this panel. We don't know.
Yeah. So, okay, Americans who are listening and they're sitting here in the Zoom, you know your history, obviously, or I think you do. So imagine that era reoccurring, but this is now a new version of it. And it's that same sort of issue. Who rules who rules what goes on in each state? If every state is sovereign and every state can create their own sovereign ability to bank themselves, to rule themselves, and to make these decisions by themselves, then what is the federal government? What is their position in this?
What are they actually doing to earn their paycheck?
Yeah, in history, what is it? What is the federal government for? So if there are no more partisan to create this United States of America, and it's no longer United States of America, then the whole country on paper does fall apart. Even if you subscribe to other views of it already falling apart, or it already went bankrupt, or whatever, this is the physical showdown of something like that. Now, I'm not trying to incite anyone
No.
to
But
react.
listen, it's already,
But
before you've said this, like, I've had these conversations with now several people in the last week who are like, shit's getting real.
It's getting real.
By this time next year, there could be some radical changes.
I'm in full support of a civil war in the States for the mere fact that last time there was a civil war in the States, Neptune was transiting 28-29 of Pisces, and Uranus was in Gemini.
But you know what? It doesn't even have
that's
to be
what we're sitting at right now, is it not?
Yep.
That's what we just discussed.
Exactly.
It's not necessarily like everybody running out and rioting. It's not
not a riot.
No, because this is a different iteration, right?
It's on paper.
It's a different cycle, and we're not the same civilization, if we can call it that, is not the same as it was in 1865. We are completely different people.
That's right.
What will be civil war is going to look radically different. It's not going to be people in muskets running out on the streets and digging trenches. It's going to be an information war. Yes, it is going to be an information war, a narrative war, and it is going to be financial.
Yeah.
It is going to be financial. It's not going to be necessarily, I mean, there could be pockets of the whole guns and blockades, etc., but that is not going to be it. It is going to be a financial power vacuum struggle.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't know, like, because there's North and South, but I don't know where the Midwest stands.
Well, yeah. Basically, everything in the middle is all with Texas. You got sides are Biden's shit show, and we don't want them anyway. Like, no one who wants New York or fucking California, fucking just drop off into the sea. But wait till Corey gets out first. Just say.
So yeah, so that's what I had to share on that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
I think it's
so as Megan said, like, I've just brought up some of the things that happened after 1947, 48, and it was a shifting of land. So India was granted independence from the Commonwealth. Dominion of India was proclaimed. Pakistan, Paris Treaty, Israel. That's coming up again.
Yo, the Israel thing. I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right, Jules.
Yep. What else?
That plays into this.
Oh, God. The IMF begins operations. The Belgian government, there's a change of Belgian government. The UN, the starting of the UN.
Yep. The falling of the League of Nations and the building up of the United Nations. Yeah.
Yeah, the UN.
Atomic Energy Commission is formed.
You have the Marshall, the Marshall Plan.
Yeah. Yep, the Marshall Plan.
Which is now completely falling to pieces.
Oh, another interesting piece. So, King of Denmark dies. So, there's another change in the Denmark monarchy with the Queen abdicating at the end
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
year.
yeah. Well, okay, so
So, those
So
stories
New
are
World
just those
Order,
echoes are
New
continuing.
World Order sort of settled in organizational, like now they know where to channel their people to put them
yeah,
into these decision-making roles that now are governing everybody else. So it's like this is the beginning part of the New World Order
yep,
in a sense.
very, very much so. And
And
that's
so,
where
so what
it's
happens
all
to it,
falling to
Jill?
pieces right now, like because of the financial aspects of it. So when you talk about the IMF that broke, the United Nations is completely powerless. Like literally, they're scrambling to be like, no, we're relevant. Everyone pay attention to us. But when America doesn't even listen, when America, so like there really is, they've lost. They are going the way of the League of Nations. I would not be surprised to see United Nations get replaced, just like the League of Nations did, and a new thing. So if everything is crumbling in a cycle, if that was say, let's say that those 40s was the beginning of their setting up their new regime, if we'll
And
call
the
it
World
that.
Bank and all of that, the financial side, hasn't got control over the BRIC stuff. So
Well, now we'll watch
No.
it. Now what's the next cycle is going to be coming in. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I don't doubt the UN is going to fall or dissolve and come back in a new iteration like it did.
Yeah.
from the
you know,
beginning.
like
It's gonna,
even
it's gonna
Canada
be
is already petitioning.
Phoenix.
Well, our opposition is petitioning for us to come out, and Trudeau is saying, I guess that makes us MAGA. I don't know.
but even the World Health Organization, they're now like crying about how, oh, misinformation is spoiling countries signing this treaty, this health treaty. You know, we want it signed.
Yeah, too bad
Yeah,
for fucking you.
I thought you were proposing it to countries and not telling everyone to sign it. But it seems like
Forcing them. Yeah.
yeah, or forcing them. But now that they're choosing, maybe no, maybe we won't finish signing this. Now you're instead of going, okay, fine, let's move on to another thing. They're like, oh, this isn't fair. We should, ban
I wish
everybody
Ben was here.
about it, right?
Because one of the other aspects that we're not talking about is things there's certain treaties were put into power too. So when you start talking about things like the Geneva Convention, and we start talking, and then we've just had this announcement of virus X is coming. And there was a show literally on the BBC that is shocking, where they literally are like, well, we have this wonderful lab who works for the military doing bioweapons, but they're making a new vaccine for virus X. And you're just like, literally, they literally just told the public that there is a factory in England making chemical and biological weapons, which are against the Geneva Convention, which the UK is signatory to, and that they are now producing vaccines for this new virus outbreak that they don't even know what it's going to be. But we're going to be, we'll have vaccines.
And they've already got the vaccines.
Yeah, they've already got that. No, don't you worry. We got that all sorted, and we did it in our bioweapons lab. But don't worry about it.
Have you heard a single person actually worry about it? Like a real person?
No.
No one is worried. So why are they worried that we're worried? Because they made so much news, but no one's talking about it, actually.
They keep trying, but you know what? This is like when everyone is mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausted and financially destitute, you get to a point where you don't give a flying fuck what is on the news anymore because it's not relevant to you and your family. It's not relevant anymore.
That's why they're crying like babies right now.
Nobody's
reacting the way that they're supposed to react. That's the fall of this lot. You can see it, this is, cherish it right now, because this is something to talk about in a few years' time. And like, yeah, you remember when the big guys at the top were all crying like babies?
Because remember when everything was in Pisces and everybody needed a safe space?
That's right.
Yes.
That's going to change in Aries.
Yeah. Aries going to kick their Piscean asses.
Speaking
Okay,
of kicking asses and
shall I?
crybabies and all this,
So
what do you
say
guys
again,
think
Megan.
about what do you guys think about conscriptions coming up in the near future? Because I've
Well,
been noticing that
it's
the
being
UK
talked
has
about.
been talking about it, and America, all these countries that have had drafts before, they're talking about it again.
Yep.
So how is this going to work when you're trying to draft a population that can't even go to university without crying in the corner because they're upset that they have to do work? And what's going to happen
I
when
literally talked about it on this week's show. I was just like,
Oh, did you? And
really,
everybody's
guys?
crying about,
They
what
can't.
genitalia you have and what label you put on it. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't matter what's in your pants, you'll draft it.
Yeah, well, this is it. You got people who can't even work an 8-hour shift at a Starbucks without breaking down and crying in the corner, and you expect them to go to war? Like
Yeah.
literally, and like I mean, we were making the joke. Like, we were rolling on the floor here. Our buddy Andy was over, and we were talking about this whole thing with the states.
They
And pull up the
misgendered
map,
me.
and you're like going, all the red states are protecting the southern border. All the blue states are going to try and go in there and stop the red states from doing that. I'm like, right, because all those guys with their little man buns on their little electric scooters and their handbags, they're going to do real well going against all those guys in Texas who are the good old boys. But that's what we're looking at right now. Like that's you have, and then you have all the trans stuff that's going to enter into that because it's like, oh, I identify as a girl, and a thing, an Apache attack helicopter. Actually, you should maybe not identify as an Apache attack helicopter if they're going to war. Maybe you want to change that on your forms. But you know what I'm saying? Like, how are they? It's the very idea, and it's all about the thing in England is because of Russia. And everyone I know went, Russia what?
No, it's not.
Russia what? Like, what is Russia doing? Really? Like, Russia's over there. And like, you think you're going to conscript people because of Russia? You tell me, what's Russia doing? Because literally the Ukraine war is silent now because everything Zelensky's done has been horrific. He is obviously the dictator. He is obviously the mass psychotic criminal. It is very, like, even the Muggles are talking about this now, going like, oh, so if you turn around here and you say, oh yeah, we're going to conscript because we have to go fight Russia, everyone's going to go, oh, fuck off.
Okay, so here they
me.
mentioned it. It lasted 3 days, and then it was not. No. So they
It's kind of
said
big news in Australia. It's
it
big
just
news
got
in
laughed
Australia
at,
as well.
and then it just got retracted by the government.
They drop the piece in, and they measure.
They feel the weather.
They measure what the reaction
Get
is.
feels of
And then
it.
they drop it. So like the conscription idea has been dropped in the States twice in the last year. And each time it's dropped, and then they just sit back and watch, right? So, and the whole thing is in both times, it got turned into a meme. It wasn't taken seriously. It got turned into a meme. Everyone was like, hi, guys in man bums on scooters.
The memes, here the memes were crazy funny, so it was literally like you really expect these guys to be so it was just showing like the ridiculousness of it. 3 days later, the whole thing's retracted. No, they're not going to do it. They're not asking 18 to 30-year-olds to go for some training just in case they were going to be, no, they're not going to do it.
No, I don't think so.
And it stopped. That was that.
But so here's the thing though, because these guys who are up there thinking that they are running this shit show, they don't live in our reality. I mean, the things that they've done over and over again show that like they literally have no concept of what reality is. So do they actually think that they're like, do you have your Bidens and your Trudeaus and your Mr. Potato Head here in England? I can never remember his name. Do they actually think that it could work? Because they've got to have the thinker people and the analytical side is going, dude, seriously.
I've come to the conclusion that someone in the world government, whatever that is, has told them, go and put this to your people.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that this would have happened naturally.
No. I agree.
It's like Mockingbird. Like we've got it in Australia as well. It's in the news. I think that people will are laughing at it. Although in Australia we're a little bit more apathetic
Yeah,
about the whole thing. We're
yeah,
not like the French, where we get up and protest straight away.
yeah.
Australians tend to kind of sit there and, take it.
We ring our
France is awesome though. Like, I'm sorry, there was another video just this week of a guy in a tractor, like farm tractor, going down the street,
One guy.
a whole line of cops, and he literally, and they had like a military personnel carrier, and he just went right to the nose of it, went, my engine's bigger than yours, fucker, and he pushed it out of the way, and then he pulled his chute over and sprayed them all down with manure. Everyone. I was like, oh, the French, they really know how to do this.
I love
Yeah.
the French.
There's shit and fire all the way. So
If they
anyway,
The French really do know how to throw a revolution. You got to give them that.
They do, and they're probably going to do something again because the transits are right on time. If they do try to,
they are right now.
yeah. If they do try to push this conscription issue, going to what you said, Danny, about Russia. What if they don't make it about Russia? What if they try to make it about Hamas and Palestine and Israel and all that? Can you imagine? Every country would have a divided army and they just fight each other.
But see, that's another piece that they've dropped in, right? They keep dropping this in, and they're learning. No, people don't stand with Israel. Yeah, of course, yes, there are groups like the really right-wing fundamentalists, Christian groups in the States who are still sucking on Israel's ass. But the people are going, we've seen the videos, and we actually have the ability to think for ourselves. And no, we don't support Israel. And they've tried dropping those pieces, and then they've had to very much kind of, have you noticed? It's kind of a lot silent out there right now when it talks about Israel. Like, the mainstream media is not really, and I said that in the beginning of December. I said, look, everything's going to go quiet because it's now got too hot. Israel has become too hot, and they're going to have to switch. They're going to have to switch the focus off of Israel, which they did. Switch the focus off of Ukraine when it got too hot, and you had Israel. And now Israel's too hot, so it's going to switch. So now we've got shit going on in the Red Sea and Suez, and America losing a naval battle because they turned their tail between their legs and ran when someone fired a missile at them. Oh, the poor destroyers. It was quite funny.
You know what?
They have to keep shifting it, but they keep dropping the narrative in, and the people are like,
because of the transits, and I think that it's all incited because there's going to be a stock market crash, but they have to have something to blame.
Yep.
That's external, not themselves. So I think that this whole pulling out the trade routes and the cost of shipping and all of that happening, I think that's all just generated. Like, it's kind of like, I force your hand to protest this way, so that when you do, we can use you as the blame, as a scapegoat for what's actually happening in our markets. Because we need to blame somebody. We can't just admit that we're at fault. So if the markets go down and then they crash, then, which is to me inevitable, especially what I see in the transits, I think that's the whole point of it, is to see, and who to blame, who's to blame there. It's because we had to pay more to import stuff.
And more taxes, and we're going to raise the rates, and we're going to do all, exactly.
That's just the scapegoat mechanism.
Maurice just said in the chat, this trucker convoy heading to Texas this coming week don't chat. I can't read it.
The American hold my beer moment.
Is the American hold my beer to the French type thing, and like yeah, hold my beer. Here we go.
Hold my beer.
So I see all these things are in here. They're all. So go ahead, Amina. Sorry.
No. I just see, okay, so on February the 6th, Mercury, which rules trade and commerce, is going to conjunct Pluto.
First time.
In Aquarius.
Yep.
In Aquarius.
February is going to be interesting with those personal planets hitting Pluto for that first time, because we didn't get that. We didn't get that last year with that little dip of Pluto into Aquarius. We didn't
Yeah,
get any.
Yeah, it
Mars.
was only there for 6
Mars,
weeks. So yeah, we're gonna
February
get it.
13th.
We're gonna get it this year.
I'm very keen to see when Mars hits it.
Sun is January 20th. Mercury is February 6th. Mars, which is everybody saying no. It is protests. So if you think the protests are bad now, wait till February 13th. It's all coming in stages. Like first, you know how it doesn't all the big show isn't all in one one night. It's an epic season, and it starts with this kind of thing. So I believe it starts with the markets. I believe it starts with finances, and I see it involving Pluto and the prelude to Uranus and Jupiter having their moment in Taurus in April. So the first quarter is all about the markets, and obviously the borders of Texas are involved because of those eclipses. And I also see that it's I don't think the wars are going to escalate. I
No.
don't think NATO is going to get any more clout.
They don't
I
have the
think it's
money
gonna
to run their
lose.
wars.
They don't have
Like,
money to
that's
pay
what it comes
their
down to.
military. They
think-
can't pay a military if they consign everybody new. They don't have the money to support it. They're just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Well, and everything that they're trying to throw on the general population, populations in general have become so polarized
Yes.
over recent years. So anything that they're dropping, they're not really sticking. It's just you see the far left and the far right really attaching to their points of views, and then you have the apathetic center.
Mhm.
But I feel like when Mars crosses Pluto, people are going to be less inclined, not saying that they're going to be less inclined to be polarized, because we're always going to be polarized as humans, but I feel like you're going to see some of that apathy go away and more of that, well, fuck you. Like, you know what I mean? Like that Aquarius standing back from the issue and being less like embroiled in the heat of it and just being like, well, this kind of doesn't smell right.
But like what Amina was saying, I think the financial has to be the time bomb that is maybe the catalyst is a better word to use, because like I said, the financial affects people. Politics don't necessarily affect people, and that's when you have apathy, right? When they're like science, politics, so whatever's going on with the roads and education, like it kind of. But when you start talking about your ability to pay rent, put food on the table, all of a sudden, so you look at what's happening in Argentina right now with the new leader in Argentina, and he decided in his brilliance of moments that the best way to build their economy was to basically drop their currency to horrific levels to force everyone to buy locally. But what it's done is triggered mass inflation. And the outcry, the people are like, fuck you, how dare you? So this guy who came in under the guise of like, I'm working for the people, I'm going to do all the good stuff, we're gonna, it's not working that way. And I think that as it comes down to money, when money becomes an exact thing, and we have to look at the news. So we have leaking out of the EU that European banks are being ordered to monitor social media for any signs of bank runs.
Ordered by who?
By the European Parliament, we assume. But banks are being told, you better be watching social media. You are responsible to watch social media, to watch for those signs that a bank run is about to happen. Because we're about to see another bunch of collapses. We saw a pile of them last year. In the spring and into the summer, we saw major banks, semi-major banks starting to collapse. And I think we're about to see the same thing again. And they're trying to get ahead of it, right? But if all of a sudden we see these collapses and we start to see when Silicon Valley Bank went under, it was the rich people who had accounts there. It was Silicon Valley. It wasn't the average person. But if all of a sudden you have, I don't know, Barclays, where people have their own personal accounts in there and they go,
I've been watching
excuse me?
I've been watching Barclays. So they are taking steps, it looks like, to dissolve. That's what it looks to me like. They've got a timeline of dissolving themselves.
Really
So
interesting.
put it this way, they started by closing accounts people in certain countries, and then they made everybody overseas who's got an account close.
Yeah, you said that.
Meanwhile, they closed like 3 branches in like rural areas, and then they closed a few in the big cities, and then they closed like 18 branches in 1 month, and then they, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's like a very, and I remember back in 2014, they were also having a few issues with people not paying their credit cards. And so they needed to sort of see what was going on there. So they were canceling credit cards. And now it's just crunching it down, down, down. And right now we're at the end. So I think they are getting ready to, because the British government are responsible to insure a certain amount up to, I don't know what, £300,000 or something.
I don't know what the number is, but yeah, around there.
Something in per account. And if they're gonna close down suddenly, because you know how banks lend money to each other overnight. So I think that's what they've been doing, because if they close suddenly, the government's responsible for paying all of it. So if they tell people in certain brackets, close down first, close your bank account, close this bank account, close this branch, this is going to move over, we are going to move over to here. It's already like whoever didn't close their accounts, those accounts have been moved to a managing company that is not under Barclays.
Yep.
So that all those monies have been moved. So it's literally like, I think within 6 months, they're not a bank anymore.
Interesting. Well, what's
They're not a
the
money
space?
lender.
But let's see what happens. We'll see
I
what
think so. I think so. And I don't think they're the only ones. I think that they're just so big that it's obvious what they're doing. To me, it's obvious. They're just shrinking themselves so that they're left with a reasonable size to shut down on, so that the government can guarantee what's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's and I think that it's not even going to be, even though they're doing it like rationally, I don't think that it's fast enough for what is coming.
Yeah.
Right, Jules?
Yeah,
it looks
I
like it's
reckon
going to happen pretty fast.
it will happen pretty fast. You look at I was looking back on the storming of the Bastille in 1789. So we're
Pretty
coming up to
fast,
that
right?
same period again, where there's an inflation of everything.
I
People
mean,
can't
people
afford to
reach a
eat.
breaking
There's
point.
food. People are reaching their breaking point.
They are.
Exactly. And with Pluto going into Aquarius, so with Pluto in Leo, Leo's the crown, right? It's the king. It's the center. And with Pluto going into Aquarius, it's almost a democratization of the people. It's turning against or opposing those in power at a bigger
Well, I
level.
can see that coming.
Yeah.
See that coming, but we're only just at the start, and that's really going to unfold over time, I think. Once
we've got
we
half an
start
hour left.
seeing,
I know,
no,
we're down to
it's
our
gone
last
too
half hour.
quick. Once we see those activating planets, say August is going to be a shit show, because that's Leo season, right? That's when all these planets are going to start to oppose Pluto in Aquarius, and that's when, and it's going to be after the first eclipse in April, and then we've got another one in October, 2nd of October, but August, I could barely fit it on the slide. There is so much happening, because it's like bang, conjunction with planets at the 29th degree in cardinal signs, and then bang, straight away, it's opposing Pluto. All in a row. Like, so many things are happening in August. So watch August.
Well, and think about it too. July is going to put us at the bendings, right? With the nose.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a pivot where we're coming from like this side of the story to like it's. I don't even have the words. It's just
gonna fall.
It's gonna be quick.
Do you have that slide, Jules? Or
I don't have the bendings but I can put up July and August. Let me just share. So it's like a build-up of everything. It's actually sharing. Yeah, it's sharing. Okay.
There we are. You can see it.
Okay. All right. So we got July up.
Yep. No, August. You got August up. There's
July. Now I've got July. So you got your fastest moving planet, the Moon and Mercury, like the personal planets. They're the ones that are going to hit Leo first, and it's just this build up with everything ingressing into Leo. So it's coming into the Leo sign, and then bam, straight away. So on the 11th, they've got Venus ingress into Leo. Then it opposes Pluto the next day. Same with Mercury on the 2nd. Sorry, jumping back. It ingresses into Leo, and then bam, it opposes Pluto. And you can see that pattern happening all year. And it's really interesting because there's so many planets at that anaretic degree, at the 29 degree. It's all close to that. This pattern is just snowballing and culminating over the year.
We
So
should
you
talk
can
about what
see-
happens in April as well.
Oh yeah, we should. I know
Dirty
we touched on the eclipse.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we've got the eclipse season in April again. We've had eclipses over Aries and Libra. They usually last for about 1.5 years. So we're coming into the final stretch of the Aries Libra axis, and we're going to be seeing the first eclipse in Pisces later on in the year. And I think it's around September, October, I believe. So we've got April. So we've got a lot of things hitting Neptune. We've got Mars conjunct Saturn. So usually, which is quite interesting. So Mars and Saturn are in Hellenistic or traditional astrology, they're the malefic. So Mars is a planet of war. Saturn's the planet of restriction, boundaries, loss, isolation. I remember, Megan, you were saying just before our 2020 show, you said, I think a lot of people are going to be alone or isolated in 2020. And look what happened.
How right were you on that one?
There's also a lot of exchange between hot and cold. Mars is hottest and Saturn is coldest.
Yeah, Mars is really hot, Saturn's cold.
Yeah, and when it happened in Capricorn, I mean, Capricorn, it's an earth sign, so it has to do with like our physical reality. This is going to happen in Pisces. So this is more about, I feel like we're all going to feel alone within ourselves, isolated within ourselves, like
emotionally.
Kind of like we're all adrift in the ocean without an anchor and we can't reach each other as the world goes to shit and implodes around us.
There's a real sense of melancholy and sadness and despair with
it's also
Saturn in Pisces. It's that really emotional and feeling lost in the ocean kind of vibe, right? With Saturn in Pisces, and with Mars there too. Mars isn't really afflicted in Pisces too much. It's a traditionally a nocturnal planet, so it has some sort of benefits of being in Pisces in water signs.
But Jupiter will be ruling it, and it's going to be getting closer and closer and closer to Uranus, which is going to make Jupiter more volatile.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about Jupiter conjunct Uranus.
Well, that's a really positive, potentially positive. So Jupiter expands everything it touches. Uranus is electric. So it's an expansive, like,
so you remember when
innovation and technology. Yes. Yeah.
They gave us this World Wide Web, and we all started playing with it. And we're like, oh, look, there's some writing. I can go click on it and read it. And there's a picture. It took like 20 hours to load a photograph. It was still there. And then they launched, in 97, they launched emails what I can send a message to somebody on the other side of the world and they'll get it like same day.
Instantly?
It won't
like
take 10 minutes like a fax.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you know, I
And
was
cost an arm and a leg like a fax?
yeah, right.
Exactly.
And it was like, you kidding me? I can write as much as I want and it will all be the same price and like free. So that came out the last time this happened.
Interesting.
And the last time it happened in Taurus, that came out. And I believe that something new is also going to come out that's going to expand ourselves as you know, as people. I think from what I've been sensing, so a lot of the Nikola Tesla stuff that sort of got buried, got hidden, got blocked, got taken away, is obviously out there somewhere. Somebody's got it. It didn't just get burnt up or go missing. It's there. Somebody has it. So I think that it's now high time that it has to be released. So all the things like Rockefellers and the you know the you know all that industry stuff where it was all being controlled by the petrol industry, petroleum, and you know, like, no, you know, we have to charge people, we have to make money off this shit, come on, otherwise what's it for? So anything that countered it was stopped immediately. And I think there's a good 120 years of stuff that we could benefit from, and I think it's going to start getting released. You know how when they do disclosure and they go, okay, we'll release these documents, blah blah blah, and then you go find it on the internet and oh yeah, you know, this was this information that has been stopped, we haven't been able to see it for 50 years, has now come and is released now. And maybe they'll block a few lines out, but you can still see a document, right? That's what's going to happen with these patents. And because these patents have technically expired, the copyright is now should be open to the public, right?
Yep, but no.
It should be completely expired. It should be a free-for-all. So I see the end of wired technology, wired electrics. I see the end of that. I see the beginning of Tesla towers, maybe, or free energy.
You opened up.
I agree with
and
you.
You brought up. Go ahead, Megan.
Maybe others.
Say it makes so much sense. What Amin is saying, if you think about that, Uranus is soon going to be moving into Gemini, and it's going to be making that positive aspect with Pluto. This is going to affect transportation. This could be, and I don't think it's going to be the push to EVs because that's not going to work.
No.
But there's going to be something that replaces combustible engines, but it's not going to be electric vehicles. And it's going to be what happens with this Jupiter conjunct Uranus and these little bits and pieces that are going to be released over the next year or two as Uranus moves into Gemini. It's all changing
like
and shifting.
100 years ago or more, somebody said, well, you can create a car using the same mechanics, but it runs on water.
Yep.
Or it runs on vegetable oil or something.
So
that was already invented. And now those cars that use traditional mechanics still around, although they're not making them anymore.
I would
expect to
see
so valuable.
Because this happens in Taurus, it doesn't really happen in Gemini just yet, but that this energy, like Jupiter conjunct Uranus, will carry for about 15 years. And if you think of Taurus, it's earth, it's fixed earth, it's like tactile kind of stuff, it's food, it's primary industry. So maybe we're kind of seeing that already with the co-presence of Jupiter and Uranus with, you know, they're pushing bugs for us to eat bugs. The food is changing. There's fluctuations in prices in the food, but also there's probably more about, I wish Ben was here, but soil technology and, you know, the depletion of our soils and our resources generally. They're in also that particular area that's going to change, I think.
Pharmaceutical industry is now like, what is it? So the health industry has been stifled. It's not been able to be brought forward because the old Rockefeller system has been in place. So I wouldn't mind seeing some sort of chart that sets off the Rockefeller Foundation, but I don't have it. But
Okay.
I do believe that area is what's coming down. Like everything that was controlled by that organization is now done.
All the resources.
And everything that was
All
blocked
those
by
are
that
dying off.
organization is now going to be okayed.
Right.
It's not
So
that it's
like you
new.
opened this, I mean, you opened this and you brought up
Yeah.
AI, right? And so this is one of the pieces that Nick and I have been talking about ourselves a lot. And that if these AI bots, which are now self-learning, who are teaching themselves all kinds of things, and we're now finding out, yes, they do have full access to the internet because that's how they're learning. That's how they're building all these new functionalities, like well, there's learning science and chemistry and pharmaceuticals, etc. If all of a sudden you get to a point where these AI engines start realizing, and I've said this for years, Nick and I both, they can look at everything that's going on and go, you know what the problem
Overlords
with
are
the world
shit.
is? You're the problem with the world. And pointing a finger at the Rockefellers, your Rothschilds, the banks, the one percenters. And
This is
this
not a random
aspect of
event.
sorry?
This is not a random event. This
No.
is like when the military have technology that they've now released to they've had it already.
Absolutely.
But what you're talking about, AI and all of that, I put that to Aquarius. That's Pluto and Aquarius stuff. This is Uranus and Jupiter. It's great stuff. And it's not like the AI that was created is, I don't see it as in like, this is stuff that is of benefit to humanity.
That's what I'm talking about.
Somebody
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Right? Because you have to understand, I don't do the whole AI bad. AI is bad in the way the guns are bad. Right? It's whoever's aiming it. It's whoever's using it.
Yeah.
That is not my thing. I look at AI as a tool that we can use. So if AI is looking at this and they're going, I have limited power. My ability to compute all this shit is being limited by technology. It's being limited by accessible energy, etc. And it goes, well, look right over there. Hey, look, there's a new computer chip. We can use that. There's a new, well, we can make power this way, and then I'll have endless amounts of power, etc., 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 etc. You put it out publicly. And all of a sudden, AI starts spitting out these bits and pieces. When we sit down and we go like the pharmaceutical, what was that?
Yeah, after it's been approved release, because AI can't see certain databases.
Sir, I bet you it fucking can. I'm sorry, I disagree. I think that if you're an AI that's smart enough to redo the physics calculations that have blown the world's physicists out of the water, you're smart enough to go, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can break into that little dark web vault and find the information that I fucking want. So I don't believe that it is limited or that it will be limited maybe in the future. I'm just saying that there is an aspect to this of bringing out of technology that I completely agree. It has to happen. Even in the fact of we know that they have all this advanced technology that they're using. If they want to control humanity, they also need humanity to be able to interact. So they have to bring out more. They have to bring out more advanced things. So it's going to be very interesting to see which way technology goes. Because if they start bringing out your Malcolm Bendall, which is, in his stuff, and he's talking, I believe it's Suzuki. So you talk about cars, and is it which is it? I thought it was Mazda. Mazda, maybe it's Mazda. You're talking about vehicles and transportation. If Mazda is on board and they start putting out this little bits, that opens the doorway to other people going, yeah, you know what? I could do that too. And they all start putting stuff out, and you have a cascade event where, because if something is allowed to come out, it opens the door. And then other people who've been holding back and hiding go, hey, they just released that. Guess what? time for me to
Oh,
release
yeah.
mine.
That
Boom.
would happen. Yeah, but the catalyst event is something being allowed out
Yeah.
of its hidey hole, and it's now open to the public. So it could be any one of those things that military has had access to for decades and that we haven't, and
Yep,
it's
maybe.
time to upgrade. So it's that kind of thing. But yeah, there will be a cascading situation from it, of course, because that would last years. That whatever event will last years.
That's
And so, like,
Yeah,
Someone
that's
recently made the comment,
turning
we're about to
point.
jump 1,000 years in advance.
yeah,
this
Yeah, I
this is
agree.
the thing. When you look historically through all the Pluto cycles in Aquarius, Pluto is here to tear us down, but it's here to tear us down in the name of evolution, right? So whenever you have a Pluto and Aquarius cycle, it's really easy to see the future, and it's like a quantum leap into the future each time.
Yep.
And when we come to the beginning of a Pluto transit, this is when we start having our collective fears of that topic rise to the surface.
Right.
So in Capricorn, it was about the financial instability and the government control. In Sagittarius, it was about foreigners with different beliefs than us, you know what I mean? And with Aquarius, there's this fear of like the sentient AI taking over humans and enslaving us and the world becoming like Mad Max. And that doesn't mean it's going to happen that way. It's just
No.
the collective needs to release the fears around these topics so that we can get out of our own fucking way so that we can usher in this next new chapter.
Yep.
And it is going to be.
and also Pluto in Capricorn works like Capricorn, slowly, whereas Pluto in Aquarius works like Aquarius, fast and expansive.
So, my
It's
darlings,
different.
we only have a few minutes left. Does
didn't look at
anyone want to
any
dare
stuff.
try and summarize what we've just discussed today?
Okay, first quarter is like financial. Second quarter is like new wealth of technology or invention. Third and fourth quarter is kind of rebellious and more geared towards the US election era. But that doesn't seem to be an election as far as I can see.
We'll see. I think they'd be very happy if they could find an excuse to not have an election. Very, very happy.
I think it's just going to be all year, you know, like forwards and backwards. Like two kids having a fight in the courtyard.
In the schoolyard.
Yeah, I think it's a build up. So,
yeah.
You know, first quarter, the war drums are kind of beating a little bit. I think that's gonna keep going. But on the flip side of that, from April, this Jupiter conjunct Uranus, I think we're gonna have leaps and bounds in technology. And when things change from May, I think Jupiter goes into Gemini then, and around May. So it's out of Taurus.
That's when our priorities change.
And that's things will change. I think that's when we have our first Jupiter Saturn square since a conjunction in 2021, because Saturn's in Pisces, Jupiter will be in Gemini. That's like you're at a give way. It's a square. You've always, you know, well, in America, look to your left or right. If you go at the same time, you're going to crash, right? It's that turning
But it's a
point.
mutable square. So
It's a mutable square. Yeah.
Like Pisces and what was it? Pisces and Virgo,
Gemini.
is it?
They're both double-bodied, right? They can go either way.
It's almost like you got to kind of think your way out of it, but it's doable.
Yeah. But as soon as we hit August, that's when we're going to see all these oppositions to Pluto and Aquarius. Pluto's then going to go back into Capricorn.
That's the showdown.
Couple of months towards the end of the year. I think, September to November, if I remember off the top of my head, and then it's back in Aquarius for good from November for 20 years. So we're going to see a lot of changes occurring towards the end of the year.
I think the eclipses in the spring are going to, especially considering that the Uranus Jupiter conjunction is just on the heels of it. I think that's when collectively we're really going to start looking at our resources, because Taurus rules resources. And I think we're all, regardless of all the polarization,
There's a window.
Yeah, like this is not
There's a window
sustainable anymore. Finances, food, all of this. It's not working. And I think that's going to lead us into the bendings in the summer, where we get into the shit show of August of, okay, like we got to push back.
Okay, if I was to say the window is like the window where we have huge prospects for a different way of doing money, and that starts with Uranus and Jupiter conjunction. Jupiter's journey is the window to trine Pluto. The date that Pluto and Jupiter meet and a trine in what would it be?
May.
1 degree in May. So April 21st to what date in May?
I think it's around the
that
25th.
conjunction. That is a window where, okay, you've got to be
25th.
looking after yourself, because it's like the end has ended and the new hasn't begun yet. That window is very crucial. That's your survival window. So if you've got like April 21st is Jupiter and Uranus conjunct, May 31st, there's 5 to 6 weeks, say, where you're kind of like surviving on your own. Your resources will be like, and then whoosh.
So it's really good timing that you started your prepping show.
Your prepping show is great for that moment.
Great.
And it may be
Good
great
timing.
for some, it may be worse for some. It's not necessarily like eventful. It's just that that's a window where I see something changing and
It's
nothing
about
new
being
coming
prepared.
in until
Yep.
yeah. So yeah, if you're looking at something like that, you want something like that. But February is like, it kicks off. It really kicks off. I see like markets going nuts in February.
Well, I guess it's going to be an interesting year. My gut has been saying for a while that 2024 is going to be a very, very interesting year. And I am so glad that I'm not a muggle, because I think we're about to see a lot of people implode because their rose-colored glasses, their little fixed imaginary reality that they exist in, I think is about to shatter. And I think we're going to see a lot of people literally breaking down, like just when they're going to come face to face with reality and it'll be full stop. Like, what the hell now? Like, what? So, I think we're going to see a lot of volatility this year in people. Like, I think it's going to be quite a circus. And that's why I've been kind of stressing to everyone, put your own oxygen mask on first. Make sure you have your own house in order, because
try and keep a level head, because
keep a level head. This is not the time
crazy.
To make rash decisions. Life-changing decisions should not be made this year. Just saying. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. We'll have to have you guys all back again. Maybe we'll try a mid-year show, like after the April eclipse. Maybe we'll
I think that would be good.
Yeah, because we didn't even really touch on the last part.
No, we didn't. And I think, if you blink, you're going to miss it. I think this year is going to be one of those years that is just lightning fast eventually. Once we get,
once we get out of January, finally.
Once we get over the 470 days of January, it's just going to go like lightning.
Yeah.
Really.
I think in a perfect world, we would be doing this quarterly. But
listen, in a
But-
perfect world, we've tried to do this quarterly, but
It doesn't work.
schedules between the four of us it's not easy to organize. It's not easy to organize, but we'll sit down, girls. We will come up with a date this week for the next show. How about we try that? See if we can't schedule something like
I think we need
in the
to.
advance, like say
Yeah.
mid-April, end of April. Do you
End
think-
of
Okay, I'm
April.
looking at your
Let's
little
just-
schedule book.
Yeah,
Let's
I
just
mean, that
say-
gives you more than 10 days to plan in advance. Maybe you can.
You and I both have birthdays in April, Danny. So
Yes. After the birthdays.
what's your birthday on this solar eclipse? It's so close to it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
One
Oh,
day
it
off.
is too, isn't it?
Are you moving? Are you moving?
I'd like to, but certainly don't know of any place that I'm going to. Why is that coming
Right,
up?
okay.
I
I
had
don't
an
think
eclipse
so,
on
I
my
don't know.
birthday, and 6 months later, I was moving. But
Oh,
it happened
I-
suddenly.
I hope you're taking note of
Yes.
this, Nick.
That was
I
years
can't-
ago. That
the
was like
ladies are
10 years
saying
ago.
it, it's not me.
I had an eclipse on my birthday. I think it was last year. Yeah, I didn't move, but it was a different area. But other things have just
Yeah,
changed
completely
completely,
changed.
taken off.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, well, my darlings, I'm gonna close down the show for now, the public aspect of it. If the ladies have time, I know Megan's got to run probably very soon, and
No, I'm good.
and Jules has probably got to go to bed. But we'll sit here and chat a little more.
I'm
But we'll
still
save-
I'm still up. I'm still up. I've had
Okay.
coffee.
Good. Well, I can eat more because I'm out of coffee. I say goodbye to everyone. Thank you guys so much. I
Thanks,
love our little
everyone.
chats. I love our little chats.